everybody. Welcome back to the Modern Star Wars Toys, the series, and today we're getting into the first series that included slides. Because we all know if there was one toy that brings children from all over the world together, it's slides. Children love slides. They love the idea of projecting them on walls. They love the idea of using them with the Viewmaster to see different themed events going by with the click of a button. I mean, what child doesn't think slides are okay, yeah, slides are basically something most kids see as like an educational thing that they have to watch at school and, it gets used for lectures. But hey, it's not like they haven't had a precedent as being part of the Star Wars brand. No one's knocking Hasbro and Kenner's decision. There were slides involved with the original Kenner line in the late 70s, early 80s. So, hey, when you're looking for a value add to show that a 3 3/4 figure is worth the price increase that the figures now had, which was about $1 more than they were previously, hey, that dollar got you a slide or a force frame, shall we say, because, that's copyrightable. And honestly, these were actually pretty cool. I like them, and I still have all of mine. And while I still don't own a slide projector myself, I do have some of them positioned around my office where light hits them and shines through them, making them look pretty cool. I guess maybe one day I'll actually load them into a slide projector and put still images of Star Wars on my wall. So most of the figures on the green card back got reissued with freeze frames, both figures that had come out previously and, of course, figures that were forthcoming. The freeze frame kind of became a definitive part of the green card, especially because, again, so many of the previous figures from orange cards and regular green cards were now reissued. So if you were a mint-on-card collector or a variant collector, boy, you had a whole other reason to rebuy the same figure again, because they now came with a force frame. Again, not every figure, though, came with the force frame. There were a handful that never got reissued with force frames. The Dagobah Luke from the early orange carded wave is one of the notorious ones. So while he had two different lightsaber sizes, no freeze frame. And for some reason, the Weequay is like really hard to find with the freeze frame, and his freeze frame is like worth money. So, hey, if you've got this one with the freeze frame, maybe you could send your kid to college. Not only did the freeze frames accompany figures, but Hasbro Kenner also came out with a handy dandy cross-sell booklet to put them in, to store them, and with a special offer that I still wish I took advantage of. I'm shocked, actually, that I didn't do this. You could send in for a projector device, which was shaped like Luke's macro binoculars. And essentially, while you couldn't project the slides up on your wall, you could look through the macro binoculars and see the slide image as a still from the film. It was actually a really cool idea, and honestly, I love the fact that it's more or less a role-play toy from A New Hope. They never really made too many macro binocular toys, and I kind of regret that I never got this, because it would just be one of those cool things that would look cool, just sitting on a desk or hanging on a coat rack or something, whether or not you knew it was supposed to be for the freeze frame. So yeah, freeze frames, the collectible book, store them in, they were cool. I'm not knocking them. All right, so our first figure with the freeze frame from this wave, and this is the first wave with them, is our Endor Rebel Soldier. So in the vintage line, meaning the Kenner line, not the vintage collection line, the Endor Rebel Trooper was called Endor Commando, and it was this guy here, which doesn't quite match the picture, and we'll get into that in a moment. But I think very beloved, especially by the older Star Wars fans who were really only getting into the brand with Return of the Jedi. The Power of the Force 2 figure definitely is an update of this particular figure and character from the movie. Because if you take a look at the Endor Rebel Troopers, not only obviously do they have unique faces, some with facial hair, some with not, they have all different outfits. Some have jackets, some have vests, some have camo jackets. The one that closely resembles the version from the Kenner toy and this Power of the Force 2 is this dude here. So even if you bought a whole bunch of them when you were a kid, you were more or less buying the same guy because they were all unique. It wasn't like the Rebel Fleet Troopers where they all dressed exactly the same. The Rebel Troopers were all very different. So same thing with Power of the Force 2, you could get an update of this very particular Endor Commando, or Endor Soldier now, same character, different name, But Kenner Hasbro did sort of figure out that this was a great character to mine and put out many, many versions of the Endor Trooper or Endor Commando or Endor Rebel Trooper. And a lot of times they were always in two different flavors because you could double down with the same tool. So many times you would get the same Endor Trooper with a head swap, be it a different race or a different facial hair configuration. It was a way to really build your army of Endor invasion and have different characters on your shelf, since, a slight paint change or a slight head change would allow you to have different outfits and the different versions. They still have not updated the particular Rebel Commando from the Kenner line, except with this initial release. And while we're talking about Rebel Endor Troopers, Commandos, Invaders, it's very interesting to note the custom there on the left, the Rebel Trooper with the gray beard. So this guy has a very interesting story. So he's front and center in quite a few shots. His canon name has been Nick Sant. And, he's appeared on Cipher cards and all sorts of things. One of the reasons he stands out, not only because he's got a beard, he's an older gentleman, but he's the one who puts on a Scout Trooper outfit and guards well, I guess watches everyone's backs, pretending to be a Scout Trooper. You can see him surrendering later without the helmet on. Now, he has been done as a figure in Scout Trooper outfit, if you will, since it was just a head swap for the regular Scout Trooper figure, but we haven't gotten a figure of him proper. And the reason I bring him up is he's recently sort of in Star Wars, I guess, world again, because he's now been retconned as Rex from Rebels and Clone Wars, so interesting. So, while this wasn't the very first Rebel Endor Trooper that was in the modern line, that goes to that concept figure, it is the one that best represents the vintage figure. And definitely interesting that we have not gotten the vintage figure, that specific Endor Trooper look, redone since. The Power of the Force 2 figure holds up still, or rather is, by default, the only modern incarnation of the vintage toy. All right, on the opposite end of the spectrum with this wave is the Leia from Endor, and not the Leia from Endor you may be thinking of, the other Leia from Endor, the one in her handmade Ewok gown. Obviously, Princess Leia spent a lot of time on the Forest Moon, and her main look is on the speeder bike and the camo, but in the Ewok Village, she lets her hair down, quite literally, and wears a dress that is made of, Ewok stuff. We never had a figure of this version of Leia in the vintage line. It probably would have looked something like this. Amazing what you can find as fan customs out there. I wish I had that talent. So one of the cool things about Power of the Force 2 is it brought new versions of Leia that we never had to the line. And while people may say, the Jabba Palace Leia is the, shall we say, most beautiful version of Leia, you can't doubt the Ewok one. It's definitely got some cool, warrior, goddess, nature kind of stuff going on. I mean, well, she's hanging out with teddy bears in a treehouse, so it's cool. And, the dress is very unique, especially for Star Wars, where most everyone wears, formal outfits. And this is one of the sort of only crafty outfit that anyone ever wears. I guess hand-stitched, shall we say. Maybe closer to what Luke had in A New Hope, although, at least that was properly fitting. So, yeah, I mean, it's very cool, and it's great to get this figure, especially because it's the only time we've ever gotten her. I mean, obviously, this version of Leia has been done as toys. There's a Lego version of this figure, and obviously, every character ever is going to be done as a Funko. Well, I mean, honestly, who hasn't been done as a Funko? Pretty much if you exist on planet Earth, you get done as a Funko. But as an action figure, Leia in her Ewok Village garb has only been done this one time. The closest we've gotten as far as action figure is probably the Forces of Destiny Leia, where she had the Endor outfit, or the Ewok Village outfit, as a secondary outfit that came packed with her. So you could change her outfits and, put this on, but you have to, first remove the Endor Trooper, or rather Endor, camo outfit, if you will. So, other than this and the action figure in Power of the Force 2, okay, well, yes, there was a second Power of the Force 2 figure, which is in the Princess Leia collection, which we'll be getting to actually quite shortly. This was a set of 4 figure sets, where each figure came with a Leia with soft goods, where the plastic PVC outfit was replaced by cloth. And I guess, yes, so this is legitimately a second version of the same character, but it is less screen accurate because the plastic version looks more like she did on screen. So, okay, I guess this one counts as a second figure, even though it came out 2 months later. It came out pretty quickly. The point is we haven't had a true update of this figure. I mean, even, 20 years later, we have never had this figure revisited and resculpted from the ground up. So, yeah, Princess Leia in her Ewok nature goddess treehouse living braids hair down look. If you want an action figure, this is pretty much your one-stop shop, one and done. All right, continuing in our Return of the Jedi, and the opposite of one and done is Lando Calrissian and his general outfit, General Calrissian, in Home 1 and in the whole Battle of Endor. So obviously Lando is very well known in his Bespin outfit, as well as the outfit he wore in Jabba's palace. And of course there's the time at the end of Empire where he wears Han Solo's clothes. But the general outfit is one of his main outfits from the trilogy. I mean, I know he was only in 2 of the 3 films, but he spends the second half of Return of the Jedi in this outfit, sometimes wearing the cape, sometimes not. The figure of him in the vintage line came out very, very late in Power of the Force 1. It was part of the ones that came with coins and were also available internationally in tri-logo packaging. And very important, this figure came with a cloth cape, as opposed to a PVC cape or a vinyl cape. It's one of the things that really marks him as a later release, since only later releases had soft goods like Jedi Luke and the ponchos on Endor. The earlier Lando from Bespin had a vinyl cape, which was also a big part of the original release in '78 with Obi-Wan and Vader and Leia all having vinyl capes. It's one of the reasons I kind of always had an issue with the Mandalorian retro figure having a vinyl cape, because if the Mandalorian, which takes place after Return of the Jedi, so it should be a post-Jedi figure, well, by this time in the line, characters had cloth capes, not vinyl. So I kind of wish he had a cloth cape. I feel like it would have been more accurate. But, either way, just glad to have more Mando figures. All right, so back to Lando. I never had this figure as a kid. I didn't have too many of the Power of the Force 1 figures. I think I was maybe getting a little older and more into He-Man and Transformers. But hey, the modern figure comes with everything you need. Giant blaster, freeze-frame slide, and of course his little maneuver at the Battle of Tanab. His cape is not made of cloth. Most figures in Power of the Force and most of the modern line do not have cloth, although some of the vintage figures now do. And, again, obligatory pop because everybody gets a Funko Pop, no matter who you are. And this isn't a one-and-done figure like Leia was. We've gotten quite a few General Lando Calrissians, and he's had soft goods too, as well as plastic capes. So hey, you get to choose what kind of cape you want on him. It's no longer just about when he appeared in the line. Later figures have cloth, earlier figures don't. All right, rounding out the first wave of freeze-frame action slide figures is Bespin Luke, or Luke in his, really, he wears this on Dagobah first. I guess it's what he's wearing under his snowspeeder pilot outfit from Hoth. I don't know. They never really explain where he gets this from. But another update to a vintage figure, which is interesting also because it's one of the few vintage figures that had 2 different card backs. So again, completists have something to chase down. And this figure provided essential Lukeness, where he fits in right between Tatooine Luke and Return of the Jedi, where he's not quite a Jedi yet. And he has a feature. He has one of the only features for Power of the Force 2 figures. Well, I guess except R5-D4 with the exploding missile. But yeah, his arm comes off. So you can recreate, Vader chopping off his son's arm, because that's, what kids love to do. And this is one of the last Lukes that came out before they slimmed him down to be more movie accurate. And we'll talk more about that when we get to those figures. And again, because this was such a popular Luke and one of the most iconic versions, we've had him quite a few times in the line over and over. Sometimes even the same tool being used, and the only thing being updated was the head sculpt. In the case of the vintage collection, we've had 2 releases of Bespin Luke, just with a new head and a slightly different paint job. One of my favorite Bespin Lukes, and I'm excited when we finally get to this figure down the line, is the one from the blue-carded Saga collection, because not only did this have one of the cooler removable hand gimmicks using a magnet, but he came with like a lot of stuff. He came with like a whole weather vane, and he came with a cast and his lightsaber, so you could actually take the weather vane and suction cup it to your window or your aquarium or your milk and hang him upside down. And it was pretty darn awesome. And he was beat up because everyone loves to beat up Luke, especially his dad.